This is the Albuquerque Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week, we interview leading local business leaders to inspire the vision and spirit that is in every entrepreneur, discussing strengths, weakness, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together to fulfill a shared vision of a new future for Albuquerque.
Hi, this is Jason Rigby, and welcome to the Albuquerque Business Podcast. Today, I want to go a little bit more into starting your own podcast. We had Jazmine on, and that was awesome, and she's looking at starting a new show. But I kind of want to get into the details, like the tools, things that are specific, something that will really help you so that you can accomplish what you need to accomplish to start your very first podcast. So let's get into this a little bit. I think the number one thing that you need to do is to make sure what's your podcast for. Is it for marketing your business? Is it for becoming an expert? Do you want to have some type of authority on the subject? Is it a hobby that you have? Is it a podcast because you love the LA Raiders and you want to do whole shows on football? Are you, like me, a digital marketer and you want to get to know the community and get your podcast out there and help and promote the city? Like for me here in Albuquerque. So what is your podcast for? You need to answer that question. And then the next question would be, who is it for? You got to be really specific online. If you're not specific, you're going to have issues. It's going to be too generic and people are not going to want to listen. You've got to intrigue people that are searching, whether it's, priority. I would say majority of people that are looking for a podcast are doing it on iTunes, the podcast app on their phone, or Google Music, or the Google Podcasts. You have Stitcher, you have all these areas. But who is it for? And really think about that, because that's a big question. If it's for someone that is a super Raiders fan and it's all about football, then now you have a whole different way that you have to approach not just your content, but the people that you have on the show, because you need to think about your listener. That's very important, to think about the listener and what you want to focus on and actually what they're interested in. If you're going to be specific and maybe you're a plumber and you live in Milwaukee and you want to talk about plumber issues or talk to other plumbers in the industry in the United States, and maybe you work for a firm that sells to plumbers, whatever it may be, you've got to be able to get real specific, because if you don't, you're going to have a question on focus, and then you're not going to be able to create engaged content if it's not focused. So I think that's really important to kind of do a deep dive on that so that you can define your podcast audience. Number 3, and this is where I want to get into this first so that we can put some theory down before we get into the real practical and some tools and some websites that I'm going to give you that's going to help you with this. Number 3 is they need to be able to have a reason to listen to you. Are you providing information? Are you a fitness coach and you want to provide information on kettlebells? Or are you a ghostwriter and you want to talk to other ghostwriters about how they can, earn extra money, or how they can find, talk to CEOs so that they can write their books for them? The list goes on and on. But you need to be able to look online, do some research. You can do it on YouTube, you can do it on Google, and find what people are typing out. What are they looking for? It gives you suggestions. When you put the one in there, it shows you what everybody else is looking at in Google. YouTube will also show you a bunch of other videos. So do some research on what your target audience is wanting to listen to. That will give you'll get a ton of responses just off of going on YouTube and looking at what other people are watching based upon what you've typed in, or going on Google and looking at other people's blog posts, and looking at other websites. Like I said, if you're a ghostwriter and you type in, best ghostwriters to hire in United States, and then you start getting all these articles, and then you type in, I'm a CEO and I'm looking for a ghostwriter, and then you're going to read all kinds of stuff on that. And you can type in how to get started in ghostwriting on YouTube, and then watch those videos. You're going to come up with 10, 15 shows just like that, just off of that. So we need to be able to have a reason for them to listen to you. And by you putting out value and putting out information that because if a million other people in the United States are looking for something, there's a podcast for that. That's what's so beautiful about podcasts. Number 4 is name your podcast. Don't try to be super markety and come up with something that, make it very clear. Put something out there. If it's, plumbers in Milwaukee, come up with something about that. If it's, the ghostwriting podcast, that's fine. You don't have to be extremely, you don't have to spend 3 months and wait to do your podcast because you're trying to come out with like the very perfect catchy name that everybody's just going to download because the name is so amazing. Look at the number 1 podcast, Joe Rogan. That's his name. Look at all the other podcasts that are out there, the top ones. If you go through and you look in iTunes, you're going to see it's just going to be pretty basic names. It's not going to be that big of a deal. I would encourage you, though, when you name it, to make sure you put, your keywords in there, something that would attract your target audience, something that's about the show, very descriptive. If it's about leadership, then use the word leadership or leader in it. That is very, very important. If you want to use your own name, that's great. Use your name. I'm specifically wanting to help the city of Albuquerque grow, and I want everybody to see the positive influence that the city has. And the potential that it has to grow. It's an amazing city. I feel like we're in the beginning steps, like Austin, Texas was, and how Colorado's been, and then some of the areas where I originally came from in the Seattle area and stuff like that. I feel like Albuquerque's in that beginning stage. And so I wanted to name my podcast specifically Albuquerque because I wanted people to listen to it and know that there's amazing business leaders here. There's amazing leadership here. There's a lot of potential where people are moving here, and it's just a great community, great culture, just a high desert, beautiful place to live. And I don't want to get into that, but I wanted to specifically name, and I know that limits me. Like if I want to talk about leadership and I want to ask a Amazon bestseller about leadership, which I've done, and then they see it's just to Albuquerque, that they can look at it and think, well, that's not going nationwide, which I do get a lot of listens all across the United States, but it's interesting. So I have to give them my stats and show them how many downloads I'm getting and all that, just to make sure that they see that, I have a large podcast. But number 5, figure out, do you want short, quick episodes? Like under 15 minutes, or do you want to do long episodes? Joe Rogan will do 2-3 hours, no sweat. What I like to do is an hour or less, like 45 minutes to an hour on my business podcast. On my higher density living podcast that I do with Alex, we'll do 2 hours straight on a subject, and then we just break it up. We have 1 hour, and then that's a show, and then we have another hour, and that's a show. But we actually record for 2 hours because the subjects that we're talking about in spirituality can be so in depth. So we've broken them up into, basically 4 shows, and we've recorded for 4 hours. So it can be pretty crazy in that, but you need to figure out what you want to do. Some people do little 5-minute bits, and they're good with that. But at the end of the day, find out exactly where you want to be. I think anything under 15 minutes is great. Anything under an hour is great if you want to go a little bit long. A lot of people say 20 to 45 minutes is a sweet spot, but that's up to the content that you're doing and your audience. If you're a researcher and you work at a university, they may be fine with you talking for 2.5 hours. That's just the subject alone. That's your unique factor that you need to find out with you to go from there. So I'll watch a whole Joe Rogan show for 2.5-3 hours. So I also like I forgot, it's Neil Patel. There's a marketing podcast, and Eric Sewell, I think is his name. And they do shows. They do basically 5-6 minute shows every day on their podcast. So that's another way to do it. But how often should you release new episodes? That's a question you need to ask too. I try to stay weekly. Um, that's kind of like where I'm at, as far as that goes. Sometimes I'll go a little bit more. But you are going to have a season, So for me, how I've done it is I'm just making the whole year, season 1. And then, next year will be season 2, and I'll just go from there. But that's up to you. You'll have to get into that. And then, do you want to take a few months break from it? You have to make that decision. Episode titles, very important. This is number 7. What I would encourage you to do is look at, like I said before, Google and YouTube. Type those keywords in. They will give you what other people are looking at, and that will help you rank higher also. That's a great tip for your website if you're putting content on your website. And are you building a new website, or you want to update your website? Go see what other people are typing in your industry, the questions that they're asking, and then answer those on your webpage. Just in your text there, you can have frequently asked question page and then answer all those, and it will help you on your SEO, your local SEO rank a lot higher with Google, because they want great content. And then if you're putting out great content on your podcast and you have that in your website, you have your podcast embedded in there, Google's going to love all that. Make sure you choose the right podcast format too. A lot of people don't get into that or don't understand that, but you really need to know, do you want to just be you? Like right now I'm doing a solo show, but most of the time I'm going to have an interview show where I'm interviewing somebody from Albuquerque, a business leader, entrepreneur, visionary. My Higher Density Living is a co-hosted show. So if that helps in that way, then, you can go from there. But do you want to do solo show? Do you want to do co-hosted show? Do you want to do an interview show? I like interviews. I think it's fun. For me, I'm learning a lot in the interviewing process. So for me, it's a great way for me to learn about somebody new and also to practice listening and trying not to talk over somebody. The solo show here can be kind of a little, when you do solo shows, it's kind of a little intimidating because you have to keep talking and you have to make sure, that you're producing a lot of good information for the listener. So, there's other formats, there's round tables, and, then you're having to buy a whole bunch of mics and all that. But let's get into some recording equipment. We're going to get into that a little bit. What I encourage you to do, Amazon has a great mic. It's very inexpensive. It hooks up to your computer. If you're just starting out and you want to do this, it's MAONO. MAONO is the name of the mic, and you'll see it. It looks like a really professional mic. If you want to go all out, the simple USB microphone, they're not going to cut it. You can use, some people like to use a headphone with the mic on it, like one of the ones that go down. That works really good. I know Rode, the Procaster mic, is like one of the best, and then everybody uses those Shure mics, but this is like $500. This mic that I'm telling you about, if you just want to start out and you want to sound good, the MAONO, that is a good mic, and it hooks to your computer, and you can, record from there on that. We'll get into different recording sessions and stuff like that. But recording and editing software, Adobe Audition is the best, and you can pay like a monthly subscription to Adobe, and you get like Adobe Illustrated. You can get all kinds of things on Adobe. If you're not wanting to get into all that, there is Audacity. That is a free program that you can use to clean up your audio, to edit your audio. And I'm going to get into here in a little bit. I'm going to get into one of my favorite to kind of polish the shows and make them sound really good. There's like a little known website that you can use, and it will put the intro and the outro in there for you, and it makes it so simple. And we'll get into that here too. Scripting your show, I did that in the beginning. I don't really do that now because I've done them for a while. I think I've got like 30 something episodes under my belt, so I don't really get into scripting the show. I'll do more research, and then I just kind of let it free flow from there. I'll do a lot of reading. I don't write it out, but in the beginning I did. And I encourage you, make a script in the beginning and then learn, how to talk into a microphone. A lot of people don't understand. They'll be, 2 feet away from the mic, before they get actually into understanding how the proper way to speak into a mic. And it just takes time. I'm going to laugh at myself 2 years from now from this podcast. If I listen to this one, I'll just be like, oh Lord, how horrific is that? But there's a lot of different things that you can do that are free online, but don't let those things stop you from that. One of the ways that people ask me, and we're going to get specifically into the tools of all the things that you can do for free that make your podcast look super professional. Is what do I do with the shows? Where do they go? How do I do everything? Google Drive is your best friend. I still use Google Drive. And the easiest way for me is I just make a folder in Google Drive. You may have to buy a little bit more. I have like 2 gigabytes or something. I haven't even used hardly any of that. But you can buy and they just charge you monthly, and it's like $9 or something. You can get a plan for like $1.99, I think, that holds up like 200 gigs or something. But I just make season 1. I make a folder in my Google Drive folder, and then season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4. And then you can just put the audio in there. But Google Drive will help you. That's the one I suggest. And then I use Google Calendar. That's free. And then I send that to my guests. And then I just send a Gmail email to them, giving them the address where we're going to meet at, after I confirm the time. And then I just invite them in the calendar, and then away we go. As far as that goes, if you're going to do interviewing or co-hosting, you can use Skype. That's free. A lot of people use that. You can use Google Hangouts, if you want to do like live streaming that way. There is certain types of other programs that are out there. I haven't used any of them yet. But I encourage you, if you need to interview somebody across the nation or something, you're in Milwaukee and you're a plumber and you want to interview a plumber in LA, then you have to use some of these things. But I know a lot of people use Skype, but there are other resources with that. So we kind of touched on the editing and post-production tools. That's probably the biggest stumbling block for people. Like I said, Audacity is really easy. There's a ton of YouTube resources. So if you want to go to YouTube, some people use GarageBand if they're comfortable with the app. I'm going to tell you about this one program that I use, that if you really, really want to fine-tune your podcast, you really want it to sound amazing, you want to take all the noise and the hiss and all that out, it's Auphonic. It's Auphonic. Auphonic. And I'm telling you, you're going to like it. It normalizes the voice. It balances the tracks. It encodes the file for you. You can put the intro and outro and then put how many seconds, and literally click fix, and it'll fix it all. So there's sound effects and stuff like that, like an intro and outro. Let's get into that. Best place to do that, this is my little secret, guys, is to go to Fiverr. So just type in Fiverr, like the number 5, but Fiverr, I think is what it is. But if you type in Fiverr, and they have people on there that's what they do. You can type in podcast intros, podcast outros, and they will make you a super professional sounding intro and outro. And then you just put that in your recording, and it's super simple to use. I don't get into all the tagging and stuff like that because Libsyn, and I want for you to understand that, because you have to host your podcast. So that's really important to understand where you're like hosting it at. So let's get into the hosting right now, because I want you to understand. There's Libsyn, which is who I use, Libsyn. I found that one to be pretty easy to use, and it stores and serves up your podcast to everywhere. Like Libsyn, when you go in there, it'll send it to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. It sends it to Apple, Google. You got to do all that setup. That's kind of overwhelming. So take a Sunday or a Saturday and say, I'm going to open a Libsyn account. It's very inexpensive. I think they even have things that are like $5 a month in there. But then I need to do all this because you got to petition to Apple to put your podcast on. You got to go to Google to put your podcast. So take the time to understand all that and just say, I'm going to work on this for, 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday or a Saturday, and you'll be done. And you can get it all done in one day. There's another one like Blurberry or something like that. Blueberry. I've never used that one. There's Spreaker. There's Podomatic, Podbean, Simplecast, Transistor. There's a lot of them. Anchor's for free. You have all those different ones on there. But you have a Buzzsprout, I think, is another one too. That goes on there, and it'll put it out to Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes. But Libsyn for me is the one I like. I enjoy it. It works really good. I want to kind of get into the design again, because I feel like, I gave you the secret for Fiverr. If you really want to step it up and you want to have like an amazing you can go to 99designs.com. That's 99designs.com, and you'll get like really professional cover art. But when you're looking at podcast cover art, you want to hire a professional with that. Like I said, you can do it really inexpensive with Fiverr, but it's so much simpler. And I wouldn't try to do it yourself. I would just, like I said, 99 Designs, Logo Maker, Elance, Fiverr, all these websites can do it very inexpensive. It has to be 1400 by 1400 at 300 DPI for iTunes. And let me give you the size. That's at squares. Like when you look at a podcast, it's a little square. It's 1400 by 1400 at 300 DPI. And then from there, you can, move it around that way. If you want to put it on YouTube, then that's going to be a different size too. And Libsyn will tell you those two. You're going to have to make 2 cover arts, basically. But that's really simple to do. Like I said, you can go on Fiverr, you tell them what you want, and then they will design it. And there's people that just do that all day long. I want to get into a little bit about the microphones. We kind of went quickly into that. I know a lot of people talk about, this is the one I told you about earlier is very inexpensive. The MAONO on Amazon. I think it's like $60, $70. The Blue Yeti, a lot of people use, that's like $120. And then the one that everybody uses that is like, if you're really heavy into it and you want to fork over the dough, it's like $250 is the Rode Procaster. And so then you're going to get into different things that you're going to have to use with that. A regular mic with the big mic cords and getting into all that is going to get you the best sound, of course, because there's just not enough with the USB cord to be able to pull it off properly. But I would start out that way, get your first season down with one of those, move forward in that direction. If you're being consistent and you're putting shows out every week and you're loving podcasting, then slowly start investing into that. And then once you get all that equipment together, you can have a nice setup. Another thing, something that I got to work on is getting the sound a little bit better because I know on here right now you're hearing an echo because I'm at my house doing it. So when I go to the studio, that's a whole different, it's soundproof, so it sounds a lot better. And if you listen to, my normal shows where I do interviews, or you listen to my Higher Density Living podcast, my spiritual show with Alex, you'll see, those are the real expensive mics and the soundproofing and all that. So it sounds amazing. But this sounds good. We just have a little bit of an echo. I need to do some soundproofing in here. So those are things that you can look at. I know a lot of people use SoundCloud, and there's a SoundCloud Pro plan if that's something that you want to use. But I really enjoy Libsyn. It's very easy to use, and it works, super easy that way. And I hope that you guys will not get too overwhelmed with this. I've been getting a lot of DMs since we just posted this one the other day, I think yesterday, about podcasting. Some people's asked me questions on it. So I kind of wanted to give you guys like specific next steps in what you can do to launch a podcast. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to DM me. I'm at Instagram at ABQ Jason Rigby. That's ABQ Jason Rigby, and Twitter, Facebook, all that. I'm on there too. Probably most active on Instagram, and then Twitter, Facebook. I'm on TikTok now at ABQ Jason Rigby. Gary Vee keeps talking about that, so I'm like, okay, dude, I'll go on there. And then Snapchat also. It's ABQ Jason Rigby on Snapchat too. If you have any questions, we can work from there. I encourage you guys, if you haven't gone to my other podcast, I'm going to give a shameless plug to it, Higher Density Living. Go to iTunes and type in Higher Density Living. We talk about all things spiritual. Alex and I do. It's a little bit more, it's not really woo-woo. It's more science-based with that. So we walk that fine edge, that cliff's edge as far as where science meets spirituality. So if that interests you, I encourage you to download that. But please let other people, especially if you're in the Albuquerque area, please let other business leaders know. And if somebody wants to be on the podcast, if one of you have something that you would like to share with the community and you feel like it would benefit and help, please let me know. Like I said, you can DM me at ABQ Jason Rigby, and I would be more than happy to talk with you on that and see if we can schedule you for that. But I encourage you guys, get into podcasting. It's amazing. You'll love it. It'll be something that will help you in being a tool for what you need to accomplish in your business. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thank you to our sponsor, DukeCityMarketing.com. Please go to abqpodcast.com where you can get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner in Albuquerque.